بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين. In this video we will talk about the patterns in the Arabic language. And patterns in Arabic is al-wazn or al-awzan, which literally means the weight. So in the previous video we talked about word roots. And here I would like to introduce an important word root in Arabic, which is fa'ala, fa'ala. This is the word root for to do. Okay, let's take some examples of fa'ala. So fa'ala is the past tense of this verb, which means he did. Fa'alat means she did. Yaf'alu, he does. Taf'alu, she does. Fa'il is the doer, someone who does the action, so that's the subject. Maf'ul is one who the action is done to, so that's the object. And the reason why fa'ala is important is because it is often used to model Arabic word roots. And what that means is that fa represents the first letter of a three-lettered word root. Ain represents the second letter, and lam represents the third letter. So let's take fa'il or doer or subject as an example here to be able to understand how this works. So fa'ala means to do. And if we add an alif after the first letter and we add a kasra to the second letter, this becomes fa'il. And fa'il is the doer, is someone who does the verb, does the action. If we take one of the examples that we talked about in the previous video, which is kataba, so kataba means to write. If we add an alif after the first letter, and we add a kasra to the second letter, it becomes katib, which is someone who does the verb, someone who does the writing, and that is a writer. Another example from the previous video is alama, and we said that alima means to know. This is the word root for knowing. So if we add an alif after ayn, and we add a kasra to lam, it becomes alim. So alim has the same pattern as fa'il, so that's someone who does the verb, someone who does the knowing, so it's someone who knows, and that's a scholar or a scientist or someone who's knowing. Another example is rasala, and we said rasala means to send. Adding an alif after the first letter and a kasra to the second letter, it becomes rasil. And rasil is someone who does the verb because it has the same pattern as fa'il. So rasil is the doer of sending, so that's the sender. So another example is maf'ul, and we said maf'ul is something that is done, so that's the object. So if we add a mim before the first letter, a mim before the fa, and a waw after the second letter, a waw after the ayn, it becomes maf'ul. So this is something that is done. So if we take kataba as an example, which means to write, and we add a mim with a fatha before the kaf, before the first letter of the verb, and a waw after the second letter, it becomes maktub. Maktub is something that the verb of writing is done to, so it means something that is written. And again, alima, if we add a mim before the first letter and a waw after the second letter, it becomes ma'loom. And ma'loom is something that is known. And rasala would be marsul. And marsul is something that is being sent. So marsul, ma'loom, maktub, they all have the same pattern as maf'ul, and they mean something that the verb is done to. So now when we see an Arabic word, if we can identify the root and identify the pattern, and we learn some roots and learn some patterns, we would be able to guess the meaning of this word.